Hey guys, Michael here, co-founder of Studicata, having worked with and helped over 1,000 students prepare for the bar exam. Our fourth bar exam misconception is that law school prepares you for the bar exam. And of course, to some degree, law school is going to help in your preparation for the bar exam. Law school introduces you to many of the concepts that are going to be tested on the bar exam, and ultimately law school is all about teaching you how to apply law to facts, and that's going to be extremely valuable in your preparation for the bar exam. What I more so mean when we're talking about this misconception is that the preparation for a law school final exam should be almost nothing like the preparation for a bar exam. It's a mistake I see every year. It's a mistake that I made after I graduated from law school and started to prepare for the bar exam. You know, my thought process was, look, I had quite a bit of success in law school doing these things to prepare for my law school final exams. I'm not going to fix what's not broken. I'm going to continue to do what gave me success in law school and apply that to my study methods for the bar exam. And of course, 2, 3, 4 weeks in, I start to realize, oh wow, this isn't going to work. You know, I can't have the same level of preparation that I would for a law school final exam that's testing one subject at a time, where the bar exam is testing 12 different subjects at a time. You just can't devote that same level of intensity, veracity, whatever you want to call it, like you could on a law school final exam. And nor should you, because the goal of each test is so different, right? The goal of a law school final exam is to get an A+, to give your professor a demonstration that you've mastered the material better than any of your classmates, right? That's your goal on a law school final exam. That is not your goal on the bar exam. The bar exam is binary. It's pass, fail. They're not comparing your exam to every other bar examinee who's taking the same test. They're just looking at your exam, in its own universe and saying, did this exam demonstrate a level, of minimum competence of the law? The bar examiners, of course, understand that nobody can master every piece of law that could ever be tested on the bar exam. It would be completely impossible. If that was the goal, we would have no lawyers, because nobody can master every detail and every nuance of every law that could ever be tested on the bar exam. Like you maybe could for a law school final exam. A law school final exam is much more narrow in scope. You can dedicate a lot more, and you have more time to spend. You have a whole semester, to devote to, maybe you're in 2, 3 different substantive law classes, considering you're doing clerkships and other things. I mean, really could be even less than that. So you have so much more time on such a more narrow scope in law school. You can actually try to master the material and demonstrate that mastery to your professor. And again, your law school professor is going to grade a law school final exam very differently than a bar examiner, right? A law school professor is going to be much more diligent and really assess each student's work, maybe reading each essay dozens of times. They may have months before they have to submit grades. They're really going to pour into the material and really assess it at a very in-depth level, where a bar examiner, right, they don't have that much time, nor do they have that type of resource or manpower. Basically, they're just going to look at your exam very snapshot quick. From my talking to bar examiners, it's like 10 to 15 minutes per essay. They're just looking at it, are you showing that level of minimum competence, right? And they're going to make that decision quickly, 10 to 15 minutes per essay. And then obviously the multiple choice portion, it's just, that's automatic, right? That's just machine grading it. So again, they're so different that you have to approach them in terms of preparation differently. And so if you're someone like me and you're a perfectionist and that worked for you in law school, you're going to have to let go of that idea very quickly in your preparation for the bar exam. You are not going to be able to master the law and the material like you could for a law school final exam. You're not going to try to learn every detail of the legislator rationale and the public policy concerns and the historical implications and dive into all of the stuff that you might dive into for a law school final exam. Bar exam, you have to drop all those notions, because ultimately they're unnecessary to pass. Again, you're not trying to get an A+ on the bar exam, you're just trying to pass. Two very different things. So, ultimately with this, guys, the misconception here is that the preparation for a law school final exam is going to be one thing. The preparation for the bar exam is a completely different thing. And if you get caught up in this idea that you're going to try to master the law for the bar exam like you would on a law school final exam, you're probably going to find yourself in a world of hurt 2 or 3, 4 weeks into preparation. Eventually you'll hit a breaking point because it's just impossible. You can't learn every detail and every nuance of every law that can be tested on the bar exam. It's just simply impossible. And the students that try to do that just drown. And I was one of them. And it's partially due to a drive for perfection that a lot of law students have, but it's also the big bar prep companies that are throwing, 8 textbooks of law at you and, all the hours of lecture that they have you watching and taking notes on. They throw so much at you. Of course, you're going to try to learn that to the best of your ability. The problem is there's going to be limits to what the best of your ability is in such a limited amount of time with so many subjects being tested at once on the bar exam. So if you have that law school expectation of like true mastery of the subjects, you're gonna get burned. So the takeaway from this is that when you get past law school, you graduate and you begin to study for the bar exam, realize that the approach is going to have to be different. Don't try to master the material, stick to the basics. Think about the elements, the real black letter law that you need to pass, and focus, of course, the majority of your time on the most tested rules, the rules that yield the most points. Obviously, in for example, torts, you're thinking negligence; evidence, you're thinking hearsay; civil procedure, you're thinking jurisdiction and maybe venue. Each subject, you want to focus on those areas, and within those areas of the most tested and the highest yielding areas of law, you really want to focus too on the elements, the black letter law, the factors. You don't want to dive into the exception to the exception in this jurisdiction. When students, I start getting those emails, right? Because they come every year about, someone will send some crazy, in this state, there's this case law that says set this precedent about some exception to an exception. And I'm always just like, I can look into this and answer this for you, but the real answer to your question is you're way too far into the weeds right now. You've gone so past the point of where you should be. That would be a very valid question if this were a law school final exam. On the bar exam, you're in the weeds, and I think that is what I'm trying to illustrate and avoid. You don't want to be thinking about that type of detail and nuance, unless you do have a photographic memory or something crazy, or you're just a very gifted, mind. Otherwise, if you're like me and you're not going to have that type of photographic memory, you're definitely going to want to narrow your scope, right? But with that, I'm droning on way too long here. I'll leave you to it. That's our 4th misconception for the bar exam. Hopefully you take some note of that, think about it. But with that, I wish you all the absolute best in your preparation for the bar exam, and I'll see you at our next video.